Bernie Madoff is an ethical vegan. Yay! You know who Bernie Madoff is? Bernie Madoff is currently in federal prison serving a 150-year sentence for ripping off thousands and thousands of people. The guy was a manager of a big fund on Wall Street, and it turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. He ended up ripping off people of, I think, $16 billion. I mean, he took people's retirement money, their savings. A friend of mine, a guy named John Robbins, who's a big vegan author, has written The Food Revolution, a lot of big books, lost all of the money that he had saved all his life to this guy, Bernie Madoff. And Madoff, people committed suicide and killed themselves because of this guy. His own son killed himself because of the shame that his father had ripped off all these people. But now, Bernie Madoff is an ethical vegetarian, or I should say an ethical vegan. So apparently, according to the story, Madoff first started eating vegan because of his heart condition, and then, I don't know, maybe something on the internet, a book he read, something made him think, you know what, he cares about animals and he wanted to be ethical. So now we know Bernie Madoff is ethical. He's an ethical vegan. What does that say about ethical vegans? Well, it pretty much says, if you're an ethical vegan, you might be a terrible person. You might be an awful person. You might have zero ethics. But you get to call yourself an ethical vegan. And what that really means is that you don't eat animals because you don't like cruelty to animals. That's all it means. It doesn't really mean anything to do with ethics that normal common usage would dictate. In other words, if I meet an ethical person, someone who I think is ethical, it means I think they're honest, they're fair, they have a series of, rules and ideas that they live by about fairness, and that's somebody who, I'd like to be a friend with, I'd like to do business with. They're ethical. But an ethical vegan, that just means the person doesn't eat animals, and the reason is because they don't like animal cruelty. But it doesn't really have anything to do with ethics per se. The ethical vegan thing reminds me of the soccer team that my kids played on growing up. On the soccer league, every kid got a trophy. So the kid who scored 30 goals got a trophy, and the kid who sat on the bench and maybe never even touched the ball gets a trophy. So it's sort of like, hey, congratulations, you get to have this trophy. Hey, congratulations, you're ethical vegan because you claim that you're vegan for the animals. But in reality, in and of itself, it really doesn't tell you much at all. I've never liked the term, I never call myself an ethical vegan, even though the animals are a big part of the reason why I'm vegan. And the reason is because it's sort of pompous. It's sort of like I'm giving myself this title, and when I tell you I'm an ethical vegan, I'm sort of implying, since you're not vegan, or maybe not vegan for the animals, that you're not as ethical as I am, you're not as good as I am. And people are put off by that. People don't like that at all. And it really kind of creates a distance between me and other people. So if I'm trying to get someone interested, by example, in veganism, and then I'm talking about my ethics and what a wonderful, cool guy I am, according to my definition, it's going to push people away. That's why I've never, ever liked it. And we've also taught our kids ethics, that's something you have to earn. You don't just give yourself a title that, oh, I'm ethical. That's something that your behavior has to show that you are ethical. It's not just giving a gift to yourself that, you're ethical. Oh, la, la, la. I've got a halo over my head. I'm so... If somebody came to me and says, I'm an ethical Christian, or I'm an ethical businessman, the first thing I would think is danger, warning, why is this guy calling himself ethical to me? That makes me think, beware, this guy may be unethical, so my antenna go up. It's kind of a weird thing for people to decide to tell you they're ethical. But the thing we know is that ethical vegans can lie. Ethical vegans can be awful people, and not ethical, they can be unethical. They can lie, and they can refuse to take responsibility for their dishonesty and their crimes. And they can really get attached to the word. They really want you to know, I'm doing this for the animals. I'm doing it because I'm ethical. And it's kind of weird, like, why do they need to tell people, I'm so holy and saintly? You know what I mean? It's a weird kind of ego thing. I think it's far more effective to say, I don't agree with the way animals are treated in our society. And that sort of opens up a discussion. Someone else can tell you, what they think. Whereas just saying, I'm ethical, that's just like a put-off. Because it's just words. It's not something you earned. All right, so I got to tell you something. Let's stop right here. This is important. Bernie Madoff is not a vegan of any kind. In fact, I made this article with Photoshop, and I made it for a point. The point is, Charles Manson could become an ethical vegan. Anybody can become an ethical vegan simply by saying they're not eating animals anymore or using animals, and that they're doing it for the animals. So this just to underscore that the term ethical vegan doesn't really tell you anything about the actual character of that person. It only describes the reason that they're not eating or using animals because of animal cruelty. I want to read to you from this article. It comes from Satya magazine, the current edition. Satya is an old vegan magazine that's been around for a long time. They look at veganism, environmentalism, animal advocacy, and social justice. And there's always some great vegan articles. You have to pay to subscribe. I'm not going to show this whole article because, you know, it's a pay thing. I don't want to just give it away. But there's an article this month written by a guy named Eric Weiss. And the article is called Vegan for Life, ? And the author is a guy who is an ethical vegan, and he's decrying the fact that of all of his friends who were ethical vegans in the 1990s, he's the only one who has stayed vegan. All of the rest of them are no longer vegan. And he says that in the article, that it's remarkable how long he's been an ethical vegan, only in relation to how many of my once vegan peers have gone back to eating animal products, which is sad. Because like me, most of them went vegan for ethical reasons. That is, they realized animals had their own interests that did not involve the dinner plate and were not theirs to eat. So how did these same people wake up one day and decide, well, I think I'll kill me some animals today? And then he goes through the different reasons that his different ethical vegan friends give for why they're no longer vegan. And one says, you know, now I raise my own animals for food. Somebody else says, I'm listening to my body. For health, I can't do it. Another is saying, it made sense when I was young and idealistic, but now being vegan just seems so extreme. Someone else says animal people are too focused on a single issue. It's hard to find really delicious vegan food and so on. And he answers each one of these with, you know, as a longtime vegan, he tells his formerly vegan, ethical vegan friends what his answer is. So for example, when they said it made sense when I was young, but not now, he says, I get it. Everyone knows that with maturity comes the revelation that raping billions of animals into existence so we can mutilate them, pump them full of antibiotics, and force them into miserable, disease-ridden conditions so we can murder them is somehow less extreme than, say, not doing that? Of course, that makes perfect sense. But remember, growing up doesn't automatically mean you have to stop giving a damn. Personally, I think that that kind of language, telling people that you're trying to convince that, you know, you're raping, you're murdering, you're pumping disease-ridden and all that, I don't think that's a good way to sell veganism. I don't think that appeals to people. And if you're an activist, or if you're just someone who would like to see more people doing this, you kind of have to have the psychology of people and understand how other people think. I find that off-putting, and I find many of the ethical vegans don't understand other people, because using words like that to try and get a former ethical vegan to come back, you know, calling them a bunch of names and what they do, I just don't know how effective that is. Here's another one. I'm listening to my body. This is about somebody who's has concerns about health. And he writes, did you ever think that maybe your body is a selfish asshole? Mine is. It demands chocolate and cake and bread and sugar all fucking day. It wants to sit around and watch television instead of going to the gym and doing the dishes. My body is a total jerk like that. But you know what awful, terrible thing my body doesn't tell me to do? Kill animals. Whew, I'm sure glad my body isn't that much of a jerk. Oh, and by the way, the American Dietetic Association has stated that a vegan diet is perfectly healthy. Don't believe me? Check this out. And then he puts the position of the ADA that vegan diets are good. And he says, tell that to your body. Okay, I mean, I think that's very cleverly written. But again, all this anger, calling someone a jerk because they've gone back to eating meat, you know. And then the other thing, you look at him, and in the article here, it says that he's 300 pounds and 6 feet tall. Okay, I'm 6 feet tall and I weigh about half that. If he's trying to tell his friends, hey, you can be healthy on a vegan diet, you know, stop making excuses, the ADA, you know, maybe if he got healthy himself, he'd be a better advocate for the health argument. Instead, he looks like somebody who's just reaching for any argument he can, you know, hit his friends over the head with to get them to, you know, come back to vegan. There's a lot to be said for being a good example. Mahatma Gandhi said that being a good example is not only the best way to teach, but it's the only way to teach. So this guy's a really good writer, and he seems like a very nice guy, but he's talking about a problem in the ethical vegan community, which is people not sticking with it. I know people who went vegan in the 70s, 80s, and 90s for health reasons, and they've expanded it now for all the reasons, and they're still doing it. But their health is really important to them. They understood the health thing, they focused on that, and that's helped, just like it did Donald Watson, keep them vegan and healthy and active, involved, and you know, they're not thinking of going back at all. I want to talk about labels for a second, because that's really where this whole talk comes out. And labels can be helpful to a degree, or as we're seeing in the vegan world, they can be unhelpful. They can be used to divide people, used to push people over and try and say you're better than somebody else. That said, I have thought a little bit about labels and labels that people can use. And of course, the easiest and most popular label I find is the word vegan. And for those people who think like me, there's OG vegan or original vegan or Watson vegan, happy vegan. McDougall'er is another term for a vegan, or vegan for the world, health vegan. Those are all words that you can use to describe yourself as a vegan. Now for the animal rights vegans, we've got animal rights vegan, or ethical vegan, or vegan for the animals, or everyone gets a trophy vegan, or better than you vegan, or asshole vegan, or maybe best, temporary vegan. But the one label that I object to is you're not a vegan, or you're plant-based. That's not up to anybody to decide but you what label you want to give to yourself. So that's it for now. Please give this video a thumbs up. Share your comments. What do you think? And we'll find out, are you a Watson vegan or a Cross vegan? But everybody's welcome. Everybody's good. See you next time.